Welcome back. It's a new episode of the Gothic Heart. And our guest today, Soph, she is an energy alchemist, which I only just am beginning to scratch the surface on understanding what that might mean. So I am going to have her introduce herself and her areas of expertise. And I have picked out some really exciting things, at least that I'm interested in, to ask her about. So I know you guys will find interest in it as well. So thank you so much for being here, Soph. And go ahead and let's take it away. Let's hear all about you.
Hi, Emily. Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be here chatting with you. So, as you mentioned, I'm an energy alchemist. So, for me, that means working with people to shift energetic blocks or restrictions that they might be experiencing in their lives, or cut any cords, or repair auras, or shift any negative attachments that they might be experiencing, or even sometimes moving on lost souls. I also work as an Akashic Records practitioner, so rebalancing all the way back into past lives.
See, that's so cool. I had mentioned, obviously, you were there right before the call. We had been talking, and I had mentioned I wanted to talk about the Akashic practitioner, just because I didn't really know what that was. And it sounds really fascinating. But for anyone else who may think that sounds familiar, I first learned about the Akashic field and things on the show, the TV show Eureka. So that's why I'm finding it so fascinating. So I can't wait to hear more. And especially about the auras as well, because I've never, or we haven't had a guest on tell us about anyone who works with auras as well. So I'd love to, if you just gave us sort of a broad, I mean, you gave us a broad spectrum on the work you do, but maybe a little more in detail, because I don't know what all of it means.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I'm doing energy alchemy work with clients, I'm working in current state energy. So, the here and the now and what's going on for them currently. So, when we look at the Akashic Records, it's looking at the length of their soul, really. So from the time of incarnation. So with energy alchemy, when I'm working on auras, I'm usually having a look to see if there's any energy leaks going on. And the way that I do that is I work remotely with clients, because literally this work is remote. I'm working at a fifth dimensional level, so I don't need to be
Good
in the
point.
room. It's not hands-on healing, so it's the very definition of a virtual medium. So I will tap in and have a look. So say if you were my client, Amity, I'd go in and have a look. It starts with a conversation. So I'm always going to ask you what you feel is going on for you. And that's where I begin. And then with your permission and with the permission of your highest self as well. So I always think of it as multi-factor authentication. So I will ask you if it's okay to go in and have a look at you at soul level. And I'll also ask your higher self if your higher self is comfortable with that too. And then when I go in and have a look, I might notice that you're leaking energy, say, from your feet. And it might be that you have an attachment that's draining some energy from you, or it might be that you have a little tear in your aura. And aura tears are really common. They can happen quite easily. They can happen at times of high stress. I particularly notice them when we've had some conflict. So often it's a case of you've had a bit of an argument with someone, or there's been some tension there, and that can cause a bit of an aura tear. Or the other way that I've noticed that aura tears can be quite common is when we don't say the things we need to say. So when we're avoiding conflict, and that can look like, you know, and it can create a little bit of a tear. The beautiful thing is your higher self has a blueprint of perfect health. So it knows exactly what you need. So sometimes it just needs a little bit of a nudge from me to say, hey, remember, you're not supposed to have this tear here. And so I'm not really doing the repair. I'm working with your higher self to help you self-heal.
Wow. That's okay. So is it subconscious, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it's at that fifth dimensional level. So if we think about dimensions, the third dimension is the physical body. The
Mhm.
fourth dimension is the mind and the ego. And then the fifth dimension and above is, you could call it a spiritual realm if you want to. I think of it as where your higher self plays. You can really think of it however you like. But that's where I see auras. For some people, they'll see auras around the physical body. That's not how I see auras. I'm seeing
Gotcha.
them at the fifth dimensional level. And I kind of work in tandem with your higher self to say, hey, what is it that you need that you don't have? What do we need to clear? What do we need to move? What is it that we need to shift to help you make the repairs you need to do? Because the thing is, intention is everything, particularly at the fifth dimensional level. So if you're not setting the intention of healing, it's not going to happen. It really comes down to action from you.
Right? I mean, that's mindset at its basic level. So
Yeah,
I completely get
absolutely.
that. So
Yeah.
this sounds so, I mean, it's almost like, well, are we able to talk to or feel from our higher self on our own, or is it something we're just not noticing? Or like, because it sounds like
Yeah.
you're guided, you're like kind of communicating from our higher self to us. So,
Absolutely.
what?
So we
Yeah.
all have access to our higher self. We can all have conversations with our higher self. Some people use meditation to do that. That's not really how I access it. I actually access it in a more conscious way. But yeah, we all are connected to our higher self at all times. It's just sometimes we lack the tools, the insight, the understanding, or we're just too close to the problem. In the same way that you might be having a problem at work or a problem with your spouse or with your kids or something. And sometimes it's just about enlisting a friend to help you work through it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I do. I kind of slide in and tell me what you need, and we work together.
I could definitely see that being too close to it point you just brought up. I mean, I can literally see a friend in a situation and know exactly what to tell them and exactly what to do. And I will not listen to anything I said when I'm in the exact same situation. So
Exactly.
I get that being too close to it for sure. Well, that's cool. So about so the tears, let's say we don't know that there's tears, but like you said, the little tears could be, conflict, etc. So those seem like, correct me if I'm wrong, that those we can like they can repair on their own or by themselves, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
what happens? I mean, I'm sure there are times when it's a more fundamental rip or change or whatever that might look like. And then how would we go about even sourcing someone like you or for someone who didn't even know that this existed? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't really play in this realm. And I think one of the things that is really important to me is to take this kind of work out of the woo-woo category and put it more in the woohoo category. So I see it more as self-care, right? Rather than
Yes.
being something that's super out there or witchy or anything like that. It really is about well-being. So in the same way that you're looking after your physical health and your mental health, you can look after your energetic health. And so there's so many different ways to access that. You can work with someone like me. I probably work differently to a lot of other practitioners in that I really do work in a virtual way. So just like we're meeting today, we would meet over Zoom and we would have a conversation. And then I actually stop it there and I go away and do the work with your higher self. And then we come back together again and I'll tell you what I found. And I think the really important thing is I'll give you really easy, actionable steps to make change. So, as I said before, intention is really the key to resolving energetic issues. So I can go and do some rebalancing for you energetically, but unless you're going to do the work to maintain it and to make positive choice, the little rips and tears will start appearing again. And certainly when you talk about bigger tears in the aura, you'll feel it at a physical level. You'll actually know it. You'll feel drained. You'll feel off balance. You'll feel like there's something wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it. You don't have a cold. You know that you're not blue. You know that it's something, but you can't quite tangibly put your finger on it. That's usually energetic.
So that is a really good point, at least that resonates with me so far, because I feel like I am taking care of my body health going to the doctors, regular physicals, etc. But also I'm a mom of three girls, 9-year-old and twin 7-year-olds, and I never have energy. I mean, it's not just the being a mom. I'm always exhausted, right? And of course, the regular advice is, well, you've got to take care of yourself. You've got to take care of yourself. Well, of course, we all try, but it's not enough. I mean, I've, been exhausted for 10 years, going on 10 years now, right? So that's that thing you're saying, like nothing's quite working, right? So maybe that's a sign to, well, what could it be? You said you had mentioned something that something could be attached if you saw it at your feet or something like that. Like there's other
Yeah,
explanations that I
absolutely.
hadn't considered.
Definitely. I mean, what I find for myself is that when I'm at a really low ebb, when I know that, my battery's drained, I might be physically tired, I might be mentally tired, I can sometimes get attached lost souls. When I'm vibing at that low frequency, I can pick up some spiritual hitchhikers. And all it really is when you think about someone who's lost, they are at a low vibe, right? So a lost soul is literally just someone who's lost and confused. They're not bad. They're not evil. There's nothing inherently wrong. They're just a little bit lost. And so this is where I would recommend, if you do have an attachment or a lost soul, it is important to go and see someone who is really practiced in working with moving them on, because it's important to know what it is you're dealing with and no guesswork. And two, you've got to safely move them on. So I've seen people go, oh, I just cleared it and just, off it went.
Oh, it's that easy.
Where did it go? Where did you send it? Who did you flick it off onto? So it is really important, I guess, to be mindful that you do need that little bit of professional intervention when you are dealing with that. Most of the time, though, you're not going to know you have a lost soul. But some indicators are that if you're starting to feel emotions that aren't really congruent with how you would normally feel, so they don't quite feel like yours. If you're exceedingly grumpy when you're normally upbeat, that can be a really good indicator. Or you're just extremely, extremely tired behind your eyes, like you've been on a long distance road trip and you've been driving for 12 hours straight. That can often be a little indicator that you've got a hitchhiker. So that's where you call someone like me or whoever your particular energetic practitioner is, and we go in and have a look and see what's going on so that we can safely guide that soul back to where it needs to be.
So those are really, I mean, thank you for sharing the advice, like on how you might, or some good signs for that for listeners. And then when you were like, but you can go work with whoever your energy person is, and I just smiled because I'm like meeting them, on this. I wouldn't even know how to go about finding someone like you, which is fine because I found you, right? But traditionally, right, it's so much better nowadays, but it's a thing we talk about on the Gothic Heart a lot, is people aren't as open-minded, etc. Of course, it's much better nowadays, and there are a lot more practitioners that do more alternative, and by alternative I mean the ones that insurance isn't like, okay, we cover. So anything outside of that. And so I'm sure it's easier, but I also believe that still not everyone's empowered to share all of their beliefs or their personality, interest, and what they can offer in the professional world. So, I mean, obviously, we would love to go to you, but let's say maybe that's not feasible for someone. Is there a specific, I mean, will we look up energy alchemist? Is that?
Well, energy alchemist is my term for the work that I do. It's not something that I've trained in. I've trained in Akashic Records, but energy alchemy is something that I've been doing since I was quite young, and I've always done it for friends or done it for family or, just people who've popped in and needed it. And now I do it in a more professional sense because I've realized that there are a lot of people out there who do need help in this space. What I would say is there's lots of different modalities that can address these sorts of energetic things. Just please be mindful. have a conversation with the person first, ask them some questions, ask them about their background, and try and understand where they come from ethically, because it's really, really important that you're working with someone who's ethical, who's not going to do you any harm, who operates under a good framework, because there are just a few kind of quirky people out there who, maybe don't practice energetic health in a way that's going to work for you. So just be really mindful of who you do work with, and make sure you feel safe. And if you have that kind of tingly feeling at the back of your neck that something isn't feeling right with that person, it is okay not to work with them. You've got to
Right.
listen to
Trust your
that.
intuition. Yes.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about intuition and empowerment on the podcast. So that makes perfect sense. But something you said, like in my head, we've been conditioned, I mean, I guess as a society forever to be like, oh, if someone's a psychic or they can do this or that, they're a quack, right? They can't be believed. So in my head, it was like finding the people who are the true practitioners that I've been bringing on the show of different mediums. But then what you were saying, it never occurred to me until this moment that there might even be people that practice this for almost, and I don't know that this is what you were saying, but it occurred to me for like maybe like a malevolent purpose, or like trying to do things not to heal the body, but for maybe some purpose for themselves. And that never even occurred to me right now. And that's a really scary thought.
Yeah, look, there's practitioners out there that can be quite ego driven, if you want to think of it that way. So it's really about I'm going to prove to you how psychic I am, and I'm going to blow your mind. That's all cool, and it's really fun to visit psychics, but just be mindful that the reading is actually about moving you forward in your life or creating shifts for you, not just proof of their skill set. So for me, I don't tend to work so much in the predictive field. I don't tend to work so much with mediumship unless I have, if you came to me, Amity, and I don't know, your great aunt had a really important message that she really wanted to get through to you, and it was quite nagging, I might do some mediumship, but that's not the focus. The focus is on you and your energetic health. So the mediumship stuff would only come into it if it was helpful to shift some energetic blocks for you.
If it showed up or it presented itself as part of it. Well, and we've had mediums and psychics and things, and that's why it was so, just various other ancestral veneration, just various other modalities of helping people. But again, this one was unique. And I say this in every episode, I feel like, but I'm seeing it apply to me personally, just in general. My at the end of last year, early this year, my parents became very close or almost disabled. So I had to move them out here. So, and I had just launched a company last year. And then, of course, my 3 kids. And it's all so overwhelming. And I do feel so exhausted all the time. So, taking care of myself energetically, I mean, even if it's not, let's say it's not a lost soul, that none of those things applied to me, what other work could I be doing? Or it's literally just I have to figure out how to get in touch with my higher self and repair it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you also have a team on the other side. So some people might refer to them as spirit guides. I call them my energy squad or my golden girls. I tend to have women on my team, and they seem to be all elderly women. So I think of them as my golden girls, and they're a really great team because they help me do this work. But everyone has a team of guides or spiritual crew or angels, or however you want to think of them. It doesn't really matter what terminology you use, that you can enlist to help you do some self-healing as well. So absolutely practice good energetic self-care. If you're noticing that things are a bit off with you, do some work on it. You can do some self-work on it. And self-care is such an interesting thing because it's the intention behind it, not so much the act. So I had a client come and see me who said, I don't even know how to do self-care. I can't do self-care. And I said, oh, okay. Do you make yourself a cup of tea during the day? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, so your homework is to do that with intention. When you make the boil the kettle and pour the water into your mug. I want you to give the mug a little hug. And I just want you to remember that you're doing something really nice for you.
Yourself.
And just that small baby step started to open up other opportunities for her to take care of herself energetically. So it was just about finding that right thing for her that made sense for her, that shifted her intentions, that helped her to start shifting her own energetic health. So absolutely, we can all make energetic shifts for ourselves. There's times when you need to call in professionals, you know, and that's absolutely what I'm here for.
Right.
That's why I work with clients, because I can see there's stuff that maybe you can't see. You might have a blind spot too. But yes, everyone has access to their own energetic health. It's not something that you have to outsource to other people, but there might be times in your life, like when you need to see a doctor rather than just have, cold syrup.
Yes.
You've got to go and see a doctor. It's the same thing with energetic health. But yeah, absolutely. You get to access your own well-being at all times.
I love the way that you put that, because honestly, most of the time when I'm like, okay, I run ragged, right? My only solution or how I'm going to replenish my energy is just take a nap, right? But now what I'm seeing, yes, a nap, of course, is going to help. Yes. If I could get my kids to leave me alone long enough to take a nap, but of course that's going to help. But I just realized the things that we do like daily, like make yourself a cup of tea or whatever, that we're just disregarding, or, it's just part of our day or whatever, we can make that part of it too and enhance it. So I just need to, or me, I keep saying me. Obviously, listeners are going to get something out of it as well. It's not just me, but
And me too. Yeah, me too. I'm a mum too.
So you just need to put some intention behind it. And we all know, it has long since been proven that mindset and your mind and everything is very powerful, and it can stop you from doing things and it can get you places. So I think I really love that tip that you just gave. And I'm trying to, my brain's whirling with like what do I do for myself that I can apply it? Obviously I know I do, but I need to put it more as I'm doing this because to take care of myself or to replenish myself, instead of, I'm doing this because, I have to take a shower because, I'm gotta get ready or whatever. Right. So put something behind it. So I really like that.
Yeah. And look, it can be, for dual purposes. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have hours and hours in the day to carve out for self-care, because we don't. It's not real and it's not practical. I remember when my kids were much younger, I was feeling like you. I was a little burnt out. I was a little tired all the time. I was just a perpetually exhausted pigeon, right? And I remember seeing a practitioner who said to me, well, you need to get up at 5 a.m. and you need to meditate and you need to go for a walk and you need to do this and this and this and this and this. And I went, cool, thank you. Thinking to myself,
that just added 5 extra hours to my day. Okay.
Yeah. I am not rolling out of bed at 5 a.m. to do that. That's not happening. If I'm up at 5 a.m., it's because I have to be, not because I'm going to meditate. And don't get me wrong, meditation's awesome. It's great. But not everyone enjoys it. Not everyone has capacity for it. Not everyone has time. So for me, it's really about making self-care as accessible as possible. And so I think you can make self-care be a dual purpose thing. So it might be that you have a 5-minute drive from home to the daycare center or to pick up the kids from school or for a meeting or wherever it might be. You can set that 5 minutes as drive time where you're thinking about the 20 things that you need to do next, or you can set that 5 minutes as some self-care time and you can pop on your podcast, Amity, or you can listen to an audiobook, or you can listen to a really great song and set some intention behind that. And you would be amazed at an energetic level what that can actually shift. I have seen that shift for clients like holes in their aura. I've seen it happen. So I had a woman who, she loves music, but she didn't realize that when she was getting in the car, she was playing music that her husband liked, or music that her mum liked, or music that the kids liked. And she had forgotten that she could select things that she really liked. So I just gave her some simple homework of just okay, I want you to think about what song it is you want to hear. What do you need to hear right now? And she started sending me little photos of her car stereo playing her favorite songs, which filled me with joy. It was really nice that she was sharing that with me. But it shifted a big, big hole for her in her aura just through her setting that self-care intention. Now, it came from me having a conversation with her higher self and me understanding that there was some work to be done there and getting some clear information about what that work needed to look like. But from her end, it was just about reconnecting with something that brought her joy. So it doesn't have to be hard.
It was simple. It wasn't 5 extra hours to add to your day starting at 5 a.m. It was doable.
Exactly.
Something manageable, not daunting. And when you said that, I was just thinking, I am a custom fine jeweler. I make custom jewelry for people based on their tastes and their stories and their memories. And of course, as a solopreneur, entrepreneur, there's a million things, right? The social media, the website, all the things. But when you were saying putting intention behind things that bring you joy, like when I'm actually just getting to create or design or do part of that, like I could put so much more behind it instead of, okay, I'm getting done what needs to be done, because I actually really enjoy it. Well, I mean, I love that part. So if I put some, intention and meaning behind that, I'm also wondering like how much more amazing some of my pieces could be too. And plus self-healing at the same time. And your 5-minute drive, that's so much more productive than me worrying about the 90 million things we have to do, because you can't do anything about them at that moment. So that's a waste of time. Whereas what you were saying is productive or could like make a difference. See, you just had given me all these little tips. I like it.
And especially if you've got energy leaking out, right? So, and that could be an aura leak. It could be that you've got an attachment. It could be a lost soul. It could be some kind of relationship issue at an energetic level. But as soon as you start doing things with intention to shift your own energy, suddenly those leaks start to dry up. So just by virtue of doing that, you're giving yourself a recharged battery.
Oh, good, because I could use that. I'm going to start implementing some of those, or just paying more attention to the things that I am doing instead of just disregarding. And that's something we talked about on an episode just a few weeks ago. How people, sometimes people are trying to contact you and they're saying things, and maybe it's an inner voice and you're just disregarding it. But pay attention. So this is the same thing. Pay attention.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, so then how does all of this relate to Akashic Records and Akashic Field, or please elaborate, because I really want to know.
Yeah. So energy alchemy, as I said, really works on the here and now. The Akashic records look more comprehensively at you as a whole being. So I've got a friend who calls them the Akashic records because she'd never heard of Akashic records, and she's like, "Oh, I want some Akashic work." So what you could think of the Akashic records as, or how I like to think of them, as the internet of you, or the giant filing cabinet for your soul. So basically it's where all of your soul level information is stored at that 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th dimensional level. Everyone has access to their own Akashic records at all times. Here's the cool thing about the internet of you though. If someone else tries to access your Akashic records without permission, the Akashic records work very much on intention. So if someone tried to go in and have a little snoop around in your Akashic records, they would be met with curious information coming back to them. So if they're going in with the intention of curiosity, they're going to get really confusing information come back to make them more curious. So the important thing with the Akashic records is to remember that you can absolutely access your Akashic records at any time. No one else can without your permission. So when I have someone's permission to work in their Akashic records, I'm going in there with a very strict set of questions that I'm asking that are really ethical. So I am not going in there and snooping around and going, "Ooh, I wonder what Amity was up to in her last lifetime." I'm looking specifically for karmic patterns that are not positive for you, that you're still upholding today, that may be from childhood or it may be from another lifetime, a past lifetime. And so I'm really looking specifically for that. And the reason that I'm looking for that is because I want to understand what's going on for you in the here and now that needs to be shifted, that you're ready to shift. So when I look in your Akashic records, patterns that you're ready to shift will come up. Patterns that you're not ready to shift, they stay private until you're ready to shift them. So I'm really looking at who you are at soul level, what your unique gifts are, where you draw your energy from, because we all draw from different sources of energy. And then I'm having a look to see what blocks or restrictions might be stopping that energetic flow and how you're upholding that through choice today, because we all have choice, we all have free will. And so the choices we make can, over time, develop karmic patterns, and they can be positive or negative. And that doesn't mean good or bad, it means positive and negative. So polarity. So in the same way that a battery has a positive and a negative terminal, choice can have a positive or negative impact for us, but it's not necessarily good or bad.
Okay, so Akashic Records take care, or you can find everything in past lives, everything about us. Does that include future too?
No, it doesn't include future because the future is never certain. So
That's a good
for
point.
you, if we're having a look at your Akashic records, we might uncover a karmic pattern that's no longer useful for you that you might want to shift. It's then up to you whether you shift it or not through positive choice. So the future could look very different depending on whether or not you shift that karmic pattern.
That is an excellent point. Okay, so I like that, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh
One of
my
the things
gosh.
I love most about the Akashic Records is it looks at spirit guides or your spiritual team or your committee, whatever you want to call them. They don't have to be spirit guides if that's not what connects for you. And something that most people don't understand about your guide team is that you do hire them and you can fire them. And so what can sometimes happen when we're small children is we can hire a spirit guide to help us with a specific problem. So say, for example, you're just starting school and you're one of those kids that has lots and lots of energy and you keep interrupting the teacher and the teacher says, Amity, you need to stop talking so much, or Amity's a daydreamer, or whatever it is the teacher might say. So as a kid, we go, oh, we've done the wrong thing. And so you ask for help, because little kids do ask for help. They ask for help from their spirit guides or their team or whoever you want to call them. And you hire in a guide to help you just be a little more chill in class, right? That's fine. But once you've learnt that skill on your own, you don't need that guide anymore. And most of the time you'll fire that guide because you've figured it out on your own and you don't need them to keep upholding that intention for you. Where it becomes a problem is if you do forget to fire them. And then you go through high school and you go through college or you go through work and you can't speak up because you've got a guide that's helping you stay quiet all the time. So it's not a bad guide. It's not a negative guide in that they're not doing anything wrong. They're just doing a really good job of what you hired them to do. Really, really good job. It's just that it may be time to fire them because we need to be able to communicate and we need to be able to speak our own voice. And so if you've got a guide that's helping you just shut up all the time, then it's actually not helpful.
So, yep, it was serving you at one point, and now it is no longer serving you. So that makes sense. I just feel like it would be really hard, if that was, let's say that was me. It's not me. I speak up everywhere. But let's say that was me. Like, I don't even know that I would necessarily realize, right? I wouldn't know that I'm supposed to speak up because I've, spent all those years not speaking up. So I guess that's, where another situation where you're too close to it. Where I would be too close to it.
You
Gotcha.
feel unhappy with something, or you might know that you really want to speak up. You just cannot make yourself do it. So that's where that insight from an Akashic Records reading can be so, so powerful and helpful. I really love working in the Akashic Records because there's so much capacity to learn information about who you are and what your patterns are. And once you see that your patterns are getting you further away from who you are at your true self, you realize you've got to change those patterns, because imagine if the energy center that you have is all about talking and communication, and you've hired a guide to help you not communicate. That's so incongruent with who you are at soul level. So it creates a big block for you, and it'll hold you back in lots of different ways. It could be impacting relationships, it could be impacting career, it could be impacting connection to personal truth, all kinds of things. So that's why I really love working in the Akashic Records, because there's so much information you can find out for yourself.
I think it could, or at least in a personal level, thinking about me, impact growth. Well, just I've always been into, Gothic, alternative, fun, new metal music, like fun things. But of course, growing up, pushed that down, became a courtroom attorney, was in regional operations, was in corporate jobs. And that was I was very successful. It's not that I wasn't, I did well. But now that I hid those parts of me. They weren't appropriate for corporate, which is, again, something we talk about here, is how we don't need to hide ourselves and how it's actually empowering. And so now that I finally am on the path to, not only in life, I personally, I got it, but also professionally, that it's okay and to do it. I feel, I think there's nothing stopping. I mean, like, I feel like the sky's the limit now. Whereas before, not consciously, but I would always feel like, well, this is as much as I can do. I don't know if that even makes
Yeah,
sense, but I just feel like now
that makes perfect sense.
leaning more into Gothic and alternative with the jewelry. And I'm even going to eventually, hopefully before the end of the year, start offering pre-made pieces for sale, not just custom. And they're all going to have that sort of Gothic vintage vibe and everything. So like I'm leaning that way, and I just feel like there's so much open for me. Like I could just skyrocket, right? Whereas before it was always like, well, I can get to here, or, oh man. So I must have
Yeah,
been
and
way
look,
off course.
I'm the same as you. So I've jumped from lots of different careers, but I've always worked in professional environments. I've worked in higher education here in Australia. I've worked even as a travel agent. And I would never, ever have been speaking about these sorts of topics at work. But actually, it's a huge part of who I am. And I can make a huge difference for people with the work that I'm doing now. Not that I wasn't in the past, I was having impact in the past, but I'm having authentic impact now. And I'm much more comfortable now when I meet someone new and I'm having a conversation with them and they say, "What do you do?" And I tell them, and they take a huge step back and go, "Oh, okay. I'm okay with that. That's okay. That's not my person. That's fine."
Yeah.
There's lots of people like you, and I'm sure your listeners, who do get it and who do understand the importance of energetic health, and that it's not woo-woo. It is just woohoo. It is just about making yourself feel good and live a good, authentic life. So for me, I'm okay with that now, but it took me a really, really long time to get to that point.
Yep. I did a whole episode on that. Like, first, do you like who you are? Well, then, okay, so how can we make it so we have the boundaries that we're not letting those people tear us down to
Yeah.
empowerment? So that's the
And if
exact
those
same
people
thing.
are really in your life, it could be a parent, it
Mhm.
could be a partner, it could be a best friend, where you're starting to live more authentically and you're starting to come into your Gothic life or whatever it might be, and that person is in conflict with that. That is a prime example of how you can have some serious energy drain. And, you know, in soul realignment practices, in Akashic Records practices, that can often mean that you've got a contract that's with that person, that you've been incarnating with them lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And if you go in and have a look at the Akashic Records and you can see a contract there, you can do the work to clear the contract. It's no problem to clear a contract. And quite often what will happen is that relationship gets better or it drops away. And either one is perfect, right?
never thought of it that way, but of course it's an energy dream. Well, yes, that I've definitely noticed, but never really realized. I love the way that you put that. So it doesn't mean you just necessarily have to cut them out of your life. Let's figure out what's behind it. And
Yeah,
I mean, come on, let's just accept people for who they are also. Just side note, but
that'd be great.
we'll get there, right? But thank you just for all of that information. I feel like you gave so much practical advice, which is amazing. And I'm going to include all of your information in the show notes so people can reach out to you, everything. So I love that the work you do, I mean, isn't even with us half the time, so that it doesn't matter that you're in Australia if I've got listeners all here in the
Yeah,
US. So that's
absolutely
cool.
not.
So that's great news. And just it was a great topic, so fascinating. I mean, I swear I say the same thing every time, but it gives me so many things to think about. But also, I love learning, so it gives me so many things to think about because I can feel things that you said apply to me personally. So if it's happening to me, it's happening to our listeners too, right? So you just got to see the best ways to apply it. But for me, I'm going to start doing the more intention and not disregarding the little things that I do during the day or my little drives and things. So I really like that advice. So I'm going to start there. But again, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything I missed that you want to share?
No, it's been my absolute pleasure. The one thing I would say is I've been watching your face, and as new concepts are dropping in for you, your energy level is topping up. So that's really, really cool. I don't know if your viewers will notice the same thing, but I can actually see for you, you've had some energetic shifts just from this conversation, which tells me that you're absolutely on the right track doing this podcast. So thank you for having me on as a guest. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I'm so glad all of these things. I would maybe if I hadn't started this podcast, I wouldn't have learned all these things. And not that I'm necessarily learning them all, but it's opening up different possibilities of things I can learn. And I think that's what's getting my energy so high is because I just love that knowledge piece of things that I'm interested in, right? I'm not going to go learn about
Me too.
biology right now or something, but that's just so so fascinating. And my energy does get up when I do these. And the funny thing is, most people would not think so, but I'm an introvert. Like, leave me alone in
Same.
my room. I'm good, but I still can present and get, but I get excited when I start learning or talk to the right people. So here we are, and it happened. So I will link everything below. Thank you again for being here. And for everybody listening, again, I know you would have gotten something out of this because I got like 25 things out of it, and I can't be that different from you. So please share this with anyone else that might be going through or that it might be connecting with, and follow, subscribe, all the things so we can keep doing this and keep learning and finding out all about this stuff together. So thank you all again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.